You ever been walking through the Navy Exchange and wonder why all the Naval Pride and Heritage gear is horrifically ugly and you wouldn't actually wear it? Have you ever wanted some really cool gear and you just don't know where to go? Well, I got you, fam. Go to dgutspodcast.com immediately. Get yourself some Naval Pride and Heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. We're working on new designs all the time, open to ideas. We're trying to create a brand that lets you display that pride but doesn't make you cringe. Also, if you're willing to and you're able to, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast, pick one of the 5 tiers and become a patron today. What's up, everybody? Let's spin some yarn. All right, we're back for the second one, even though you're not going to get this till Wednesday. I'm recording it right after I recorded the, what was it, competence. We're doing the last memo for this year, culture, basically. That's what it's about. It's a Freudian slip. That's what it's titled. Is it actually about culture? Fucked if I know. We'll get into it. Sorry, my nose is still being temperamental. But yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm getting a message. We're talking about culture, so overarching concept. So like conceptually, I don't think the Navy has any fucking idea how to build culture, what it even means. If you've never read the culture code, do it now. This is what it looks like. I'm going to read some shit out of it as we go here. Daniel Coyle. There's a link on it on the reading list on the website. It's one of my favorite books ever. Thank you, Ariana. No, not Ariana. I almost fucked that up. Ray. Shout out to Ray Tao, one of the homies. She's coming up on a podcast soon too, by the way. We just did one about chief season stuff. But the culture code, she recommended it to me. It is a fucking incredible book. Like it's one of those things where they just wove together a ton of concepts to create an idea and explain it to me in a way that I've never thought about it. And it really just put a lot of shit together. Like I had a lot of the pieces that are in this. And if you go back and listen, or if you've already listened, you'll see a lot of the things I talk about in this book. But the way that the author threads it all together and has really great examples, because he worked with a bunch of people, and one of them's like a SEAL team, because of course. But like and I'm not saying like that's like it's a bad thing. It's just everyone does it, like because they're very, very high functioning teams, obviously doing like crazy stressful shit. But and they do it very, very well. So that's like another reason why they're a great case study. But the book itself, it's just so fucking valuable for explaining what a culture is and why we're so fucking bad at it. Like, because they don't understand human psychology. They don't understand, they being like big Navy and shit. They don't understand, there's all these things that are touchy-feely. Right? The military is kind of allergic to touchy-feely historically, traditionally. Like it's not part of our DNA to be that, right? When you say emotional intelligence, even when you, like he says it in here, I believe, humble servant leader, even when you say shit like that, chiefs bristle, right? It's like that touchy-feely nerfing the world shit. It like instantly gives like the fucking, I don't want to fucking do that. Like it's not the go-to for the most part. And I say that with the, like, part of the reason that is true is because historically, and like, don't get all pissed at me. I'm making a point, but like, it's not the only reason, but it's a reason, is that the military's been predominantly dudes for fucking ever. And it's still predominantly dudes. It's been all exclusively dudes for most of its history, with exceptions, obviously. I mean, there were women fighting in the American Revolution. If you don't believe me, look it up. But like, posing as men, but they were doing it. And then there obviously were always women involved in ways that today would involve wearing a uniform to work, like nurses and stuff. But like, actually like gun in hand doing fighting. It happened in every war, probably every war ever. But like, there's like, like any Disney fans out there, you ever watch Mulan where she pretends to be a dude? Like that's what was happening is like most of the time when a woman was in combat back in the day, they were pretending to be a man, but because that was the rules. And that's my point is like, it's predominantly dudes. So you can imagine the culture that will create. Men are conditioned like throughout their entire lives to not like, you're not leaning into feelings. Fuck feelings. We're going to, rub some dirt on it, dust yourself off, get the fuck back up, try harder. Nobody fucking cares about your feelings. And men are supposed to be strong and stoic and unemotional, right? I mean, in modernity, it's fucking something that is being recontextualized, I would say. Like it still exists. Yeah, I think most men are still raised that way to a degree. It's probably not anywhere near as bad as it was. Like, like my mom would tell stories about how my grandparents would leave letters for each other on their dresser. Or like it might have been a one-way communication too. Like they didn't really, my grandparents didn't really talk, but like when my grandma had something that she wanted to like take up with my grandpa, she would leave a letter on his dresser. Like they didn't like talk about certain things because he's the head of the household and they don't, you don't question my authority. That kind of shit. Like that was real back in the day. It didn't make them bad people. That was just like, that's how it was for a lot of people, like where it wasn't, they didn't understand certain things and things hadn't evolved. Understandings hadn't evolved. People had roles, blah, blah, blah. So I think that a lot of the things, like when you read a culture code, what you encounter, like one of the primary themes throughout the book is creating a safe environment, right? That I was telling, we talked a little bit about it on the podcast we did the other day. It won't be released for a bit, but maybe next week. I'm not like forever, but one of the themes throughout the entire book is the safe space thing, and that's like a third rail for a lot of people because of the whole like college kids wanting a safe space, blah blah blah, and it's like that's not what they're saying, right? What they're saying is a lot of what you encounter in this document as well about like. Are sailors empowered to speak up? Are you listening to their ideas and capitalizing on their ingenuity and listening to feedback or inviting feedback? Are you communicating with them? Are you, blah, blah, blah. Like there's a ton of stuff that falls into the emotional intelligence, like touchy-feely stuff that I feel like people have negative reactions to, which is why you don't see it most of the time. Not to mention, I mean, most people aren't going out and reading these types of books either. So even if they're in those positions, you would think that you'd be the people that were, and like, I'm sure people are, yeah, whatever. He's a New York best-selling author for a reason. So it's like somebody's fucking buying his book. But one of the I got some highlighted quotes that I'm just going to use to illustrate points, but in this creating a safe space lane, right? What they really mean is this, right? So this is a Harvard psychologist named Amy Edmondson being quoted as saying, "We have a place in our brain that's always worried about what people think of us, especially higher ups. As far as our brain is concerned, if our social system rejects us, we could die. Given that our sense of danger is so natural and automatic, organizations have to do some pretty special things to overcome that natural trigger." So what does that mean? It means back in the day when we were doing like hunter-gatherer things, right? Like you got to think like DNA memory type thing like that. Like the reason you're afraid of snakes You know, like as a child, you're afraid of spiders, whatever. Most kids, some kids are bold, like fearless. My niece used to be like, she was she wasn't afraid of anything. You're programmed with these like pre-installed fears of things for a reason, right? Because you have a reason to be afraid of them. The dark, right? Being one of them. Why? Because predators. You can't fucking see them. Like, there's dangers in the dark. And back then, all you had was fire to provide light at night. So, like, how do you see predators? You don't. You get fucked up in the dark, right? So you don't go out in the dark. That's a bad idea. Same kind of thing, right? Belonging cues. Excuse me. Sorry. Sensitive ass cancer throat. I ate a handful of macadamia nuts earlier, and it's just like, sometimes there's just like, it doesn't take much for my throat to get irritated. Apparently when you get irradiated from the neck up, shit gets sensitive. So the same thing with belonging, right? If you get ostracized from your group, right? If your tribe kicks you the fuck out and you're on your own, how do you think that's going to go when there's saber-toothed fucking tigers and shit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever, like some predator that will kill you. Like, being humans, it's like our strength was numbers and intellect, like problem solving skills. Like, you could create weapons and tools and fire, and like, and when we put our heads together, we can outsmart a saber-toothed tiger and you know, wear him as a helmet cloak thing, like in movies. You know what I mean? Who did that? Somebody wore like a lion head or something. Alexander the Great, maybe? I don't know. Somebody had a cool... There was a movie. Anyway. Like had a tiger that he wore as a hat or something. I don't fucking know. But the point being, the reason why we have that programming is pretty logical, right? But we largely ignore it in the military. Like, especially, like, if you ever wanted an example of like belonging cues being important and how we actively sabotage that, look no further than the Chiefs season. You know what I mean? Like, we actively sabotage people's sense of belonging and ability to trust, and we actively attack the environment's ability to be considered safe in fucking any way, shape, or form for the entire Chiefs season. Because why? We're fucking incompetent. That's why. So, like, just do a little reading on human psychology. And their books like this are great because you don't have to go get a psychology degree like I did. You don't have to read scientific papers on psychology like I do. You can just, they aggregate it into a book like this, and it gives you everything you need to be a fucking immensely better leader. Like these books like this, it's like he did all this for you. He talked to these people. He did the research. He did case studies. He did all this stuff and then wrote a fucking incredible book so that you can read, you know, I mean, you could read this in a couple days. It's like a couple 250-ish pages. And he's got all the references in the back too. Not sure what the fuck just happened there, but yeah. I'm on one today. My fucking whole tumor was in my sinuses. Like, the whole thing is connected. Sinuses and throat, and it's been, I couldn't sleep last night. It's been weird. It's been a weird 24-hour period with my sinus fuckery. Sorry. It's creating some weird audio, I'm sure. But yeah, let's get into the memo before you fucking listen to an hour of me talking about my sinuses. So culture, they're getting into, like last year they talked about officer enlisted connection, wardroom, like training officers is important, blah, 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 I guess. I didn't go back and look at it because I don't care that much. But the first part of it, talking about being visible, setting the tone. This, I actually almost entirely like this because he points at a lot of things that I think need to be pointed at. I wish they, again, spent a lot more time meaningfully addressing these things in an educational forum of some kind. Like, this is the kind of shit Chiefs training should be about. But he's talking about Chiefs connect with sailors by listening well, by being authentic, and by caring about their well-being. That sounds like something I would say. And I'm not trying to stroke my own ego. I'm just saying, like, I love that. Sailors connect with chiefs who model ability, trust, loyalty, and respect. I would put trust, loyalty, and respect above all those things, because this, again, like, I'm not, ability or competency generally and technically and institutionally and all that shit is very important. But again, going back to that quote I just read, it's like the belonging cues for establishing a culture specifically are what we're talking about, and those are foundational. They're critical. You're never ever going to be able to lead people without creating a space. Like, if they don't feel safe with you and in the environment culturally, they're not going to trust you. If they don't trust you, they're not going to be loyal to you or respect you, and they won't give a fuck about your ability at that point, whether it's good or bad, because there are hyper competent technical experts that are fucking abysmal leaders and just treat their people terribly and actively sabotage trust, loyalty, respect, and every other fucking belonging cue on earth. So keep that in mind. Ability is important. Like, if you're like the most emotionally intelligent hugger on earth, but you're an idiot at your job, like if you're technically incompetent, that's gonna be a fucking problem. People might love coming to work and feel safe and trust you generally, but they're not going to trust you technically. They're not going to trust your technical guidance. They're not going to trust your ability to plan maintenance. They're not going to trust your ordering the right things. They're not going to trust any of that shit, and that's going to be a big problem. But it's a bigger problem if they don't trust you and if they're not loyal to you and they don't respect you. Okay. So, are you approachable? I love, because like I was told for a long time I was not approachable because I come on strong. I talk loud. I have the deep booming voice, all that kind of stuff. And even when I get like passionate about stuff, if I'm yelling, like go listen to an open letter to commanders. That's me yelling. This, like me getting my voice up or like getting animated or passionate about something with my deep kind of like, I don't know, loud voice or whatever. That's me just talking. But like people will interpret this as me raising my voice, which inevitably turns into the descriptor yelling. And it's like, I'm not yelling. You want to hear me yell? Go listen to that episode. And me yelling in real life, it's like, you could hear me 3 houses down when I'm yelling in real life. Like here, I mean, you talking like this, like, yeah, you could hear me in the other room because that's just my voice travels. That's just how my voice works. But I had to curate my interactions with people to address that I was being told, or other people were being told, that I was unapproachable, which is fair. Like, I'm intimidating, I guess. I don't know. Like, because of the way that I talk and can come on strong and am passionate about things, people are intimidated by that, I guess. Do your sailors bring their issues to you without fear? Are you out and about engaging with the team in their spaces? I lost my spot because I went back and forth. Are you finding out about issues during a command climate out brief or formal survey, or are sailors coming to you with their problems early? That one, I love. That's the kind of line, like, it's got some of that detail in it, some of that like good, relatable, like he's pointing at something he knows is a problem in the Chiefs mess and is an illustrative point of if that's how you're finding out about the problems at your command, you're fucking up. And a CMC might not get this stuff. Like, I would say if you're really humming, like if you have a really, really great command climate, your chiefs are bringing this stuff to you before you ever see it on a command climate survey. And hopefully you won't see most of it on a command climate survey. Like, you're always going to have stuff on there, but there's always going to be somebody that's not happy, and that's how you're going to get comments. But with the ratings on everything, like, you should still score higher and then have less comments that are thematic, like that you can like connect those dots and say, okay, we have a problem with this. But yeah, I really love this entire paragraph, which is a new feeling for me when reading these memos. Like, not even the first paragraph. It's like the first 3 lines for visible sets the tone in paragraph 2. That whole first part, I mean, that's really great. And those are really great points to make. The problem is if you're not teaching people about culture building fundamentally, like this book does, then how do they do any of these things in a meaningful way? Because like authenticity is a hard thing to teach. You can find people that like you just identify it via watching and the feeling and do you trust what they're portraying and everything. But a discussion of culture building generally and some of the human psychology behind it, again, you don't need to nerd out on it. Just a book like this is sufficient. It will help you understand the point of doing these things. Like, how do you become approachable? Like, are you approachable? A lot of people are going to say yes because they have a blind spot or they're just ignorant to their faults. But if you're provided the feedback from an authoritative figure that you are not approachable, like I was, how do you then become approachable? How do you address that issue? How do you create an environment where sailors are bringing you their issues without fear? Like, these are all yes or no questions to an extent, but you need to talk about why. Are you out and about? Like, great, go be out and about. I talk about all the time how I used to just walk around the ship a lot and talk to people. And that was a big part of that was, I mean, I love sailors, but a big part of that was I was told to do that. Like, I was told, you're a chief on the ship all the time. That's a direct quote from my cob on my first chief's tour. You're a chief on the ship all the time. So like, when you're walking around, talk to people, like interact with people. And part of that comes from me being a CS. Like, I spent a lot of time on the mess decks and those are my customers. And so I'm kind of doing that thing where I'm like, I'm trying to bring them, like I would stand at the front of the chow line and kind of do the mess deck master at arms thing, because like some people would be dicks to my cooks because they're easy targets. And, you know, like, it's like they're already frustrated and burnt out and stressed out and pissed off about other shit. And then when they come to the chow line and it's like a meal they don't want, you know, they just like unload on the cook. And it's like, so I would stand at the front of the chow line to destroy people and defend my guys, because like, you're not fucking doing that. But also I was trying to like, I would kind of like joke with people constantly. I was trying to like bring some levity to their day, like make them smile, cheer them up a little bit, get them in a better headspace where they sit down and eat a meal, and then they can like hopefully vent off some of that frustration with their friends. And, you know, not, I mean, a lot of that was for the off-going guys too, because like the oncoming guys, it's like they got to go stand watch, so they're not going to brighten up that much. But still, like, I'm just trying to like cheer them up a little bit, I guess, or bring them some morale, I guess. I don't know if it worked, but that's what I was trying to do. And I also like, I think that's part of why I enjoyed it, but like I did it because I was being told to do it. I was being told to, like, when you're out there, like, talk to people. And then I learned over time from having done it that I get to establish this rapport with a lot of people on the ship. I build a lot of trust with those people. And then guess what they do? They tell me shit. They bring me problems, especially like it got to a point where I got good enough at it that they would bring me problems with their chiefs, which seems a little like, I don't know how I feel about that. But if you feel like you can't bring the problem to your chief, is it better to just let it fester until everything boils over? Or is it better to like bring it to somebody like me who can like get them to, I just would like in a roundabout way do my best to like get them to just talk to me, the chief who's problematic for this division. Just talk to me about what's going on in your division, and then they'll voluntarily unload their stress. And now I have both sides of it. And then I can provide them advice and mentorship, which I'm supposed to be doing anyway, without ever like diming out like that they told me anything, and hopefully fix whatever the problem is, or like provide that chief with the tools they need to make that problem go away by just doing better, not necessarily by like remediating anything, like fixing an issue. Just like they were doing something that pissed their division off and they didn't even know they were doing it, and they didn't know it was pissing their division off because they felt like they couldn't bring it to their chief. And then you can kind of give them what they need so that resolves itself in ways. Or sometimes it would need to be like sit them down and, hey man, what the fuck are you doing? Like I overheard some shit and what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, it's very, very helpful. It's very, very helpful. And what was also cool was like people were willing to provide me with feedback they wouldn't provide other chiefs. So like, for example, we're going to do a thing, and I've brought this up before. The chiefs mess would come up with an idea, and I would go like stupid check it with some E5s, and they would tell me like because they trusted I wouldn't have a negative reaction because I didn't historically. Like I wanted their real opinion, and they understood that via trust, authenticity, the safety to know that there won't be any reprisal or consequences. So they would tell me like, nope, that's fucking dumb. Here's why. And they would explain it to me, and I'd be like, oh, all right. And then I'd bring that into the mess as if it was me saying it. And then they would get their input into whatever we were doing. And a lot of times it prevented us from doing some dumb shit. But if they listened to me, which I had a lot of influence. So like a lot of times they they always listened, but they didn't always like do what I wanted them to. But yeah, I mean but otherwise, like I really love that paragraph. Well, not even a paragraph, like those couple sentences. Because it's pointing at things that are very real problems. Does it provide any tools for doing anything meaningfully positive? No, not really. But like, it's good stuff to be trying to create a conversation around, though. So, I mean, it would be great if there was already infrastructure providing these things, and you're just like trying to create a conversation amongst these chief selects about these things. But unfortunately, we don't provide them with any of the things they need to be good at that type of stuff. So, I worry, and you'll see this theme throughout this entire document. I worry that a lot of this is just like, it's almost like you're talking about the ideal, but in practice, we're so far below this bar that this stuff doesn't even land with most chiefs. All right. So builds credible combat teams, warfighter readiness. So talking about chiefs, I think he wrote this before and I shit all over it last time too, but chiefs are a combination of doing things right and doing the right things. Just fucking delete that sentence from your entire vernacular. I fucking hate it so much. Doing things right and doing the right things. It's the same thing. You just flip some words around. What the fuck is it? Explain the difference so that I can tell you you're dumb. Like, it's fucking stupid. I fucking hate sentences like that just because it's like, it doesn't mean anything. You said nothing. You could have just left it fucking blank. Why, God, why? I fucking hate. It's like a catchphrase or something. Like, they think it's super clever and fucking, like, they're saying something like, it's so dumb. All right, I'm done. Do you have a comprehensive watch bill replacement plan? Weird question to follow up that random ass pointless sentence. Also, a better sentence would have been, can you even create a comprehensive watch bill replacement plan if you're terminally undermanned? Which I feel like most people are. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's gotten better. I mean, I heard we met our recruiting goal, which I suspect they probably just changed the goal to meet what they actually recruited, but whatever. Like, tell me, are you still feeling the pain out there? And like, I suspect you are. And so can you even, how do you build a watchable replacement plan if you don't have people and you don't have like potential gains inbound or whatever, or if you have unplanned losses to mental health, to medical issues, to whatever, and you don't have identified replacements. It's like, okay, well, what the fuck are you supposed? I can't recruit people. I can't detail people to my platform. So cool. I mean, in a perfect world, do you have a comprehensive watchable replacement plan? Is that like that big of a question? If you have adequate manning, you kind of have a built-in watchable replacement plan. It's all kind of incidental at that point. If you're meeting all of the timeline requirements and like, I mean, you just have to have like a tiny little thimble full of fucking foresight to just make sure people get qualified, the things they're supposed to get qualified. But like, if you have the requisite number of people, you have a watchable replacement plan, as long as you're enforcing qualification deadlines and shit. So like, that weird question for me. that's a more important question for a command SEL, I would say. Which I don't, or a watchable coordinate. I don't know how it works on bigger platforms and like not submarines, I guess. But like on submarines, it's basically the COB or the CMC in this case. The command SEL is the COB. So the COB manages like the whole thing and works with the EDMC for the nukes, obviously, but like manages the whole thing to ensure we have enough people and we're not like leaving people on the beach for school or a baby being born or whatever if we can't man a watch bill. So, much more important question for somebody like that. But like for an individual chief, like you kind of fucking, unless you're undermanned, which you don't have a lot of control over, I feel like this question is not important enough to be in this document, I guess is what I'm saying. For an LCPO, anyway. But again, I may be wildly different the way things function on an aircraft carrier or something. And so like it is important. I don't know. Chiefs understand their maintenance, administration, training, and all other things that must be done. They must know when to do it and how it needs to be done. It's a really broad, sweeping, like you got to be an expert at everything type of statement. And I feel like I dismantled that pretty holistically in the last episode. So I won't go too far down the rabbit hole, but it's like you got maintenance, administration, and training. All of those things need to be done and need to be done on time and need to be done correctly. It's like, okay, how many holes can I punch in all of those things with the statement, when did you teach me how to do that? When did you educate and qualify me to do those things? Like some of it, sure, but like not all of it. So what the fuck are we doing? Like, cool, like it needs to be done, but you also need to prepare people to do it. You need to train and qualify people to do all the things that you expect them to do and that you're going to hold them accountable to. If you're like actively measuring my performance in an area, you goddamn better well have a formal education and qualification process. If you want to call it training, you can call it training. I like education better, but whatever. Yeah. Let's see. How are you actively looking for ways to improve your team's warfighting ability? I mean, like, I would argue that the organization as a whole needs to prioritize warfighting ability over fucking eval bullets and shit. Like, this has been an issue for over 20 years. And I'm sure longer than that, but, like, that's my context. Where people are getting promoted based on erroneous criteria. We've talked about it a ton. And it's not just the things we're evaluating them on, but it's what we're prioritizing through like the enlisted career path, precepts, convening letter, all that kind of, all the documents that kind of dictate what you need to make chief or what you know, like what you need to do, whatever. And they've tried to address this with things like adjusting the weighting of certain things for like the E6 and below, like the PMA computations and stuff to make evals more important. But it's like there's still a disproportionate amount of shit that doesn't actually matter figuring into how people are getting promoted. And what I mean by that is like when you're evaluating records at the Chiefs board, most of the things I'm grading have nothing to do with your warfighting ability. Because like if you think about like I'm a cook chief, so what's my warfighting ability on a submarine? Okay. As far as my like primary duty goes, it's don't make the crew sick and don't run out of food. Basically. Like ideally morale will be high because I'm good at cooking too, but like pretty much don't make the crew sick and don't run out of food and don't like break my equipment because, you know, then the electricians have to do that instead of fucking, or A-gangers have to do that instead of like maintaining other more important equipment that breaks a lot because we use it a lot and shit. So, that's about it. And then if you look at like me as an individual when I was like a senior chief, okay, so I'm standing diving officer of the watch, but that's kind of unique to me as an individual. And I did everything I possibly could to know as much as I could and be as prepared as I could. That's why I had issues sleeping. I was so fucking worried about fucking it up because it's not what I normally do, but that's how I would improve my warfighting ability. But as far as my team, it's like, yeah, make sure we don't run out of food, which I prioritized. I was very, like, again, like I was an analytics dork so that I could predict it, so that I could, and I had a very, very specific plan for like each day when you prepare this thing, you're allowed to use this much so that we're not using too much so that we're not running out. Right. But I was very good at that. And then making sure nobody gets sick. Like sanitation was more important to me than food quality because of the nature of what we do, right? In the civilian world, it's still a huge deal. If you make somebody sick, it's going to destroy your business, right? And that's, you know, like the bottom line in a successful food service operation, like the profit margins are low. So you got to be really fucking good at what you're doing to be making money at all, right? And it's real easy to be on the wrong side of that, to be like in the red. So like if you make people sick, you're fucked. Like that restaurant's going under, right? But you're not compromising national security. You're not turning a submarine around and not being on mission when you're supposed to be because the whole fucking crew is got, you know, insert foodborne illness here. That's fucking can't happen. You can't allow the crew to get sick like that. It cannot happen. So it's more important than food quality. Like I want the food to taste good, but like the actual mission is that the food is like what we call wholesome. That's the word we use for it, which just means safe and edible. Like I need it to provide you with the nourishment, the nutrition that you need to go fight the ship. I don't need it to taste delicious. I want it to taste delicious because I don't want everybody to hate us and I don't want the crew to be pissed all the time. So there's that. But that's not mission critical. You know what I'm saying? It just needs to be, you know, it's like prison food. You know what I mean? Like people like to call it prison food, even though I worked my ass off to make it not that. But at the end of the day, it's a nice to have. It's like I just need it to be safe. So like those things exist, but it's like, what are you doing to improve their warfighting readiness? I don't know. Maybe the organization should try prioritizing warfighting readiness. And I don't mean like refitting a ship and shit. I mean like making it so that people are rewarded and thus they're incentivized to proactively pursue being better at warfighting efficiency, right? It's like instead of being worried about getting my MOVSM or fucking getting a degree or getting this major command collateral duty, all of which just fucking evaporates when ships start getting shot at, right? When sailors are in harm's way, and I'm talking like peer competitor type war, not a fucking the shit that's going on right now where like Houthis are plinking at ships and shit. I'm talking about like an actual like big large scale war with a near peer competitor. All that shit just fucking fucks off, you know? Like nobody's talking about like division in the spotlight when we're getting shot at. They're talking about drilling and killing and making sure all our equipment's in peak condition and getting as much sleep as possible because tomorrow we might be getting shot at and be in combat for fucking 24 hours straight. So get to sleep when you can. You know what I mean? Like priorities will very rapidly shift and the day-to-day life of a sailor on a ship will look very different, like starkly different. And it's like, why? Why is it like that? Like, why aren't we already operating in a way that allows for us to be as prepared as possible for that eventuality? And then like, yes, there will be like some adjustments if shit's blowing up around us for sure, but there won't be as big of a learning curve if we're prioritizing it. If we're living as close to that, like living as if we're as close to that as possible with the understanding that that's a very unique circumstance. That's not our all the time reality. So like, yeah, there will be some things that change. Like my brother, for instance, he was on the flight deck of the Theodore Roosevelt for post 9/11 Afghanistan, right? So for enduring freedom. And he was on the flight. I mean, there were times he was on the flight deck for 24 plus hours straight launching planes because that's just what it entailed. And it's hot as fuck. He's not getting any sleep. And it's like, it's brutal work. And so it's like, That's war. Like they needed to do that at the time. That wasn't normal. He didn't do that on a regular basis outside the context of that operation. But when he was there, he did. So like, there's that. But then there's a lot of other stuff that like you could do to prepare for that and prioritize the type of like proficiency and ability to deal with things going wrong with the type of wear and tear they were putting on all that equipment, doing flight ops 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for extended periods of time. And then the wear and tear on the people. Like, you got to mitigate the fatigue and the risk that's incurred as a result and all that stuff, right? So, yeah. All that is to say, in the immortal words of Jason Thompson, the primary question we should be asking is, would I take this person into war with me tomorrow? Like, that's kind of how evals should be structured, in my opinion. That should be how promotion systems are structured. It's like around, like, if I'm doing like a fantasy draft of who I'm going to man a submarine with to go to war with tomorrow, not because I think they're going to make Master Chief or some shit, or like, who do I want to take to sea to me tomorrow if I got to go fight China? That's how rankings should happen in my analysis. And granted, I understand we need metrics and we need to do all this shit, but like, we've been a peacetime military for so long that I think we've taken our eye off the ball and started to allow for superfluous bullshit to become prioritized over what is really important. Which so he's right in that way, where like that is what should be prioritized, but it's not. So like, what are we doing? Like, do we relate everything to their warfighting readiness? Like, no, we should, but we don't. So how, like, you're asking that question and it's like, I feel like everybody's just kind of internally scratching their head and like, when the fuck did we ever do that? Like, why are you asking me that question if you know that institutionally that's not what we've been doing forever? I don't know. That's always been a weird one for me. They like to talk about that at his level, at the strategic level, at the like doctrine generating level. But then in the actual application of what we do on a daily basis, it's not prioritized in the way that it should. Like, do things happen that are addressing that? Yeah, for sure. But like, there's way too much superfluous bullshit that just immediately will fall away if we're ever in that type of a conflict. Moving on to builds credible combat teams and warfighter readiness. So same kind of theme, I guess, but Chiefs, never mind. That's what I did already. What am I doing? Idiot. Honors and rewards members of their team. Okay, so this is like the positive reinforcement for the behavior that you want that I kind of mentioned earlier. So sailors connect with strong leaders who are competent, committed, and fair. A leader who will not remove their challenges, but teach them how to navigate through them. I don't like that line only because he contradicts it later. Yes. Is it sometimes appropriate to do that? 100%. But also you need to like filter out the shit that isn't, it's not like, there are situations where that's not their obstacle to navigate through, even though it's presenting itself to them. It's presenting itself to them because you allowed it to get to them. It should have never got to them. You should have fucking removed it. So that's what I mean by that. And he kind of like, he contradicts himself later, which really you should have just included it in that statement so it wasn't contradictory, but whatever. And then, okay, so there's something else I want to read from the book. This is from Culture Code. Go buy the book. If you want to use our affiliate link on the website on the reading list, I'd appreciate it, but just buy the book. This is some more psychologists. Like, this is like a quote or like a statement that's paraphrased. It says, "We are built to require lots of signaling over and over again. This is why a sense of belonging is easy to destroy and hard to build." So when we're talking about like communicating to our team that they're doing the right thing, like it's not a one-time thing. Like, they did that thing well, so you tell them one time, "Oh, hey, great job on that, on the drill today or whatever. It's like, no, you got to consistently tell them and reinforce the things that you want them to do and continually tell them this is what right looks like, continually show them this is what right looks like, continually hold them accountable. Like, it's not a one-time thing. It's like, think about like, and this is like, I'm going to use an analogy. I'm not comparing sailors to dogs. I just want to disclaim this right now. But when you're training a dog to do a thing, like you're trying to teach them how to sit, it doesn't just happen. Like, you have to consistently like teach them, because they're effectively learning a word in a language they don't know, right? Because they don't talk. So you're trying to like use this sound as a cue for when I make the sound, you do the thing. And then there's a reward mechanism of like me saying, oh, good girl, good boy, or giving them a treat or whatever, right? Again, not real. I'm just relating this experience to the experience of you need to positively reinforce behavior constantly. You need to hold people accountable for not doing the right thing or not meeting the metric or whatever constantly. You need to communicate and enforce standards and counsel people and talk to them and all the things. It never ends. You have to do it constantly, not just because people are built this way psychologically, but also because our organization is built for turnover. Like, it's built for you to always have new people coming in and always have people leaving, right? There's built-in constant turnover. So it's like, if people weren't built this way psychologically, you'd still have to do it because of the nature of our organization. But even if the organization's turnover was static, essentially, like it was like a job where people worked there for 30 years straight at the same place, so you always had the same people except for like the incidental turnover, you still have to do it constantly because psychology is a motherfucker. So like you're never going to escape human psychology. So you have to address that. Our own egos can easily be our weakness. What? Chiefs' egos can be their weakness? I'm shooketh. Okay, like, of course it can. Of fucking course it can. And I would say, like, that's one of our biggest problems as an organization and individually is we can't get out of the way of our own fucking egos. And it's like we spend way too much time focusing on Chiefs' pride shit, which is ego-driven. And it's like ego, like, run amok. It's ego as a weakness. Like, is there utility to having an ego? Of fucking course there is. But it's real easy to let that go off the rails. And, so like, okay, like obvious, truthful statement, I guess, for whatever that's worth. I don't know what value that adds, but context to this piece of the paragraph. But we must work to maintain a healthy ego and not allow false bravado, but instead spend time celebrating our people. What is your plan for recognizing sailors? How are you finding opportunities to help them excel? I wish there was just there's so much of this shit that like he should be releasing one of these every week on like a topic like recognition, like sailor recognition. And then you can provide several sentences on all the different ways that you can do this effectively. But like to just have throwaway lines in a document like this, like to think you're going to address culture in a page and a half when it took this dude who did a ton of research and really thoughtfully wrote a book. It took him 250 pages and probably a few years to do this. It's like to think you're going to address all this and make any type of meaningful impact in a page and a half is fucking absurd. But also like there's no tools here. There's no like meat on this bone at fucking all. Like you're pointing at a thing that's important and then providing no context, no explanation, and no actual information to improve somebody's ability to do the thing. So kind of what's the point, I guess? I fucking, these things still perplex me. But yeah, I mean, like, cool. Recognize your sailors. But it's just like the last episode. Teach them. So, like, recognize your sailors. Okay, how? How many of you have ever read the Navy Awards instruction? Like, probably zero. Maybe you've perused it once or twice to reference something, or like look something up. But by and large, you probably haven't looked at it. Most commands award awards based on rank, which is explicitly prohibited in the instruction. Like, you're never going to see Well, I'm sure there's anomalies. There's exceptions. But, like, you're never going to see a second class on a submarine get a comm unless they did something fucking insane. Like saved the goddamn day in, like casualty, and they, like, fixed the equipment and got us back on mission or some shit. And even then, it's probably a spot name. I mean, they'd have to do something nuts. Like, save a bus full of nuns nuts. Maybe they'd get a Navy and Marine Corps medal for that nowadays, but, like, you get, like, it's really got to be insane. Do they sometimes merit comms? Fuck yeah, they do. I merited a comm at one point as a first class, and I didn't get it because, of course, I didn't, because I was a first class on a submarine. So it's like, you know, whatever. It is what it is. It's just like the eval instruction. In practice, it's something very different than what is written in the instruction. It's fucking stupid and nonsensical bullshit, but, like, that's reality. So, like, okay, I'm shouting at the wind, trying to fucking argue those points. But being familiar with the awards instruction, being familiar with all the other mechanisms that exist, not cheap, like, I'll never get off this bandwagon, not cheapening the Chiefs coin. This is a USS Jimmy Carter Chiefs coin. It's one of my favorite coins ever. Hopefully the camera can, like, pick it up. They designed it. It was Tavis Crandall. Give credit where credit's due. I don't know if anybody else had anything to do with it, but this dude, Tavis Crandall, he is a now, I believe, retired A-Gang senior chief from submarines. He designed this. This coin is, like, to me, this is a really meaningful coin because of my time there, but also because you didn't buy these. You were given this by a chief for doing something that merited a coin. And it was a very, very effective mechanism for rewarding people just for, like, thanking them, like, materially thanking them. It was like a super thank you. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, it's not quite an award, but it is in the ways that matter for all those belonging cues that they're talking about in this book, for the positive reinforcement of the behaviors we want to validate and to encourage in the future. And to build trust and shit. When you get coined by a chief in the right environment and in the right command culture, it's such a big deal, man. And it matters the chief it's coming from too, but, like, it still matters. It's like when a CO coins somebody, like, you can't buy a CO's coin, which they have done a good job of maintaining that mechanism. I wish chiefs would stop pretending this is fucking memorabilia to be sold to raise funds. Like, sell stickers and shirts and hats and shit all you want, and patches and fucking everything any and everything you want except this. Like, to me, this is like a sacred tool that we created and then fucking destroyed because we're dumb organizationally. This was a really important mechanism, and I feel like chiefs have just, due to ignorance, just destroyed that. We don't have it anymore because you're so fucking obsessed with this stupid coin culture of, like, gotta collect them all, even though 100 new ones come out every goddamn day. It's like, I don't know. I hate it. I hate that that's been torn down, and it's just a tool removed from the toolbox chiefs have to do exactly this. And it was one of the best. It was one of the best. I fucking loved it because even chiefs who didn't have the tools to do it with just words, which you can, or do it with other acts like the drink run story that I tell all the time and shit. It's like for new chiefs, especially, that don't have, like, all of the nuanced understanding and expertise and experience needed to, like, navigate those relationships in a way where I could do it with just words and encouragement, that's a thing that you can develop, and it's very real and it is meaningful. Before you had that, you could just coin people, and it was fucking awesome. It was like there was, like, wisdom built into this fight. It was like a magic fucking tool where I could just be like, here you go. Like the John Wick coins, like, it would just get you access and provide energy and positive reinforcement. Like, it was like a hack. It was like a cheat code, and you fucking ruined it, man. I'm still butthurt. I'm still pissed off. But yeah, I mean, like, you should familiarize yourself with all the mechanisms, like be an expert on the program and the instruction and all the different ways that you can reward sailors, programmatically, but also like between the lines, like the things, here go my dogs, the things that you need to do to like positively reinforce behavior that you can do by like letting them out early day after duty, or, you know, giving them a day of special lib as like you're at the dentist today or whatever. Like there's lots of like in between the lines ways to do it. And then there's the formal programmatic ways to do it. Emulate inclusion to promote connectedness. This is in team effectiveness. So our mess must be inclusive. We must generate mutual trust with our people by rewarding those who create strong outcomes and positive culture. Chiefs are humble servant leaders. No, they're not. What can we do to steer us away from any perception that the Chiefs mess is prideful and exclusive? The list is longer than a page and a fucking half, guy. All right? Like, it's an important thing that I think should be addressed, but the idea that, I even will get all in on board with, like 100% on board with the idea that each chief, if they did a little bit every day, this would improve dramatically. But we also, and this guy owns it, right? What can we do to make the Chiefs mess less prideful and exclusive? How about policy documents? How about a creed that says that? How about you dictate the culture of the Chiefs mess and what you expect out of chief petty officers in a meaningful way through policy documents that are part of like building who we are and what we do, instead of modeling teaching to the creed after this dog shit creed we have? How about teaching to the mission, vision, and guiding principles, or an updated creed based on those, or whatever? Right? You can't just point at it and say it's bad. You have to actively dismantle that, and you have to replace it with something. And I think you can. You're just not fucking doing it. And why? I don't know. For fuck's sake. And like he has like 100%, like he has all the power here. Like he could just do it, but he's just not. And he may think he's doing it with these memos, but he's not. Like no one's going to remember this shit. It's so frustrating. How do you inspire cooperation in your team? Every sailor has value and wants to excel. I like that statement. How do you inspire cooperation in your team? It's a team building conversation. That's a whole conversation, not one throwaway line. And I understand this is supposed to be part of the conversations that largely aren't happening in messes, but like, okay, you know, like still address it more. Every sailor has value and wants to excel. I love, like, it's not the best way to say it, I don't think. Like, I don't think anybody shows up to work wanting to suck. And like, every sailor has value because duh, like, of course they do, but they want to excel. I don't think everyone believes that. I don't think everyone believes that every sailor shows up to work wanting to be a valuable, meaningful, like, contributor to the team. Right? That's that whole first quote I read about, like the belonging cues, and how when they're actively sabotaged, we think we're going to die, right? Like that's the gravity of that not being done correctly. So like every sailor has value and wants to excel. Like them wanting to excel is them wanting to meet whatever metrics they need to belong to the tribe so that they don't die. Psychological, programmatically, whatever. So, it's really fucking important. And that's why I talk about that all the time, is because like, that's what I mean when I'm saying that, is like, they all want to excel, meaning they all want to belong to the group because it's just how they're programmed. Like, I don't give a fuck what comes out of their mouth or how, like what their behavior is telling you. Deep down, they want to belong to the organization, like point blank period. Even if they tell you they don't, like they want to belong somewhere, is my point, right? Like, yeah, at this point, maybe you've destroyed their ability to ever trust you or the organization, and it just is what it is. Like, things can be beyond repair, and that's attrition. But I'm unwilling to ever give up on winning that battle. Like, so like, even if I think they're too far gone, I don't believe there's a such thing as too far gone, even though I'm probably wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and I've lost a lot of those battles too, but I'm never going to not try because I understand this to be what it actually is with the psychology part of it. And so I'm like, well, I can fix that. I can meet those needs and provide those cues and make you create a sense of belonging and build trust and all those things. And there's been times where the best I could accomplish was trust in me as an individual, not in chiefs generally, not in the Navy or submarines or the organization. So I can get the best possible performance out of them for trusting me until they leave the organization, because it's just that there are things that are too far broken. And that just is what it is. Like, I can't make scar tissue go away. And if the damage is just done and they're resolute in their like the decision to get out, so it is what it is. But I can rehabilitate as much of that as I can to trust me, the individual, and then allow me to like help you prepare for that transition as much as I can and everything else. So it's important, but it's like I'm like getting to the point where I'm like, I almost can't fucking take it anymore. Like, thank God this is the last one, just because this shit is so brain dead. And it's like, just teach. You said it yourself in your first memo, and I know you know better. I know you have the level of knowledge and experience to do this shit. So just, if this is how you want to communicate, fine. Give me a memo every week and address every sailor has value and wants to excel. That's it. A 2-page memo by itself. Explain that concept. Explain what that means. Explain how I can do better. Explain what happens when the trust is sabotaged and the scar tissue exists and they're too far gone, but like I can still do good. And then they can be an ambassador as a veteran for the Navy, where they can't authentically communicate their experience in the military as all negative because you intervened. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could at the very least send an ambassador out to the world that's like, well, it's not all bad. They're not all bad. Like, the leadership can be incompetent, but there was this one guy or there was this one lady that at the end there, man, they really created a possibility in my mind that it can be done correctly because I watched it happen. And I had this one individual, this one good leader. Like, that's a fucking huge deal, because that veteran then goes into the world and communicates a more positive experience, that it can be done correctly. And so maybe they just got unlucky, or maybe that it can't be all bad unless you're being disingenuous. But like, we don't even talk about this shit. He just poses a question and lets the room full of incompetence on this topic, which is why he feels he needs to address it in the first place, just like recycle the incompetence around the room. And it's like, and it's not to say like maybe somebody in that room read the culture code, but how many chief selects are going to speak up about that shit? I don't know. Like, there's not no value to these conversations, but there's a lot less than if you provided some actual information to discuss instead of just posing a question with no answer. It's like we tell junior E3s to come to the mess with proposed solutions, and yet you're releasing shit like this. Fucking hurts my feelings, man. Do you wargame your plan? Where did I even leave off? Chiefs need to plan early. Chiefs make time to reflect on. Make time. Just because I have that ability to just shit time. Chiefs make time to reflect on their leadership and their teams and what it takes to develop a clear path to success. Do you wargame your plans and mentor your team to develop contingency plans? I don't know. Do you leverage the ideas and innovation of your most junior sailors? I'm just going to skip that wargame shit because it's dumb. Do you leverage the ideas and innovation of your most junior sailors? Great fucking question. Should be its own memo. About, I mean, just that idea, like, most chiefs are fucking allergic to that kind of shit. Like, being open to a junior sailor proposing a solution to a problem, like, for the whole division or for like a thing we need to do on mission or like whatever. Even like a watch build program, like anything, a qual process, anything. Most leaders are not going to be open to that type of like agency of a junior sailor proposing an idea and then you putting your fucking ego aside and allowing it to be their solution and allowing them to be recognized for them being their solution. And it's like, it's funny because it really just is selfish, ego-driven bullshit, just ignorance. Because when you let that happen, one, they're fucking smart, and they will come up with ideas if you create a culture that allows for that, to propose those ideas. They will come up with ideas that will blow your fucking mind. Like, they'll blow your socks off with some of the shit they come up with that is like ingenious compared to what you were doing or any idea that you would have come up with in trying to solve the problem. And they're the one that has to do the thing, right? They're the one standing the watch. You're just writing the watch bill or whatever. If they come up with a idea that doesn't materially harm mission accomplishment, doesn't violate any regulations, doesn't present any real problems, it's just not your fucking idea, and it's not what you've been doing historically, but they want to do it, right? And maybe they regret it a weekend. That's possible, and it happens. But if they want to do it and you're like, God, that sounds like a terrible idea, but they're all on board, everybody's on board, everybody thinks it's a fucking great idea, and they're all enthusiastic about it, at least let them try it, because one of a few things will happen. One, it'll eat shit, they'll hate it, and they'll be begging you to go back to your original setup, in which case your ego gets stroked and you're like, ha, I was right, and whatever. And like, don't say that, because she's like, all right, like, because you want to let them, like, again, like, try that war game it or whatever the fuck he meant by that. Like, try shit out. But then the other thing that'll happen more often than not is they'll love that shit. They will do it. It was their idea. And there's some benefit that you would have never understood because you're not the one in there doing it, that they now get every time they stand watch, and they're eternally grateful for you allowing that to happen, number one. And number two, it was their goddamn idea. They have ownership in the process now. And there's a ton of value, the belonging cues, the value to the organization, all that shit. It was their idea. So it's their watch bill now. It's their watch rotation. This is their thing. So they're going to be a lot more resilient, too, to the shit that sucks because they put themselves in that position. But those benefits, and you're allowing them to do that, the fucking benefit and the mileage you get from that and the trust and just everything, it's enormous. It's such a big fucking deal. Even if you were going to, like, even if there's a thing you were going to do anyway, and you can, like, inception that shit, you can, like, let them come up with an idea and then you can just nudge it a little bit, and it's basically your plan, but they think it's their plan, you can do that too. Let them have ownership in the process, and the buy-in you'll get, I mean, it'll blow your fucking mind. It's so easy to convince them that these things are important and that they need to, like, be engaged and go towards this goal enthusiastically, blah, blah, blah. If they get to be part of that process, if they have ownership in whatever that solution is, whatever the product is we're putting out, you can get so much mileage out of that. Are you a leader in solving command problems and driving mission accomplishment through other teams? How about within the Chiefs Mess? Do you actively seek to understand barriers to success? This is him contradicting himself, but it should have just been included in the sentence earlier that I mentioned. Do you act with purpose to remove barriers, the ones he said that you shouldn't remove earlier, before needing to elevate them, like presumably like elevate them to get help solving the problem above you? Do you encourage sailors to do their jobs and make decisions without much oversight? So all those are good, but all those are, again, it's like it all just needs to be its own thing so that you can provide actual information and context, so that you can point to these documents as you providing the information needed to have these discussions in a meaningful way, but also had in the way that you want them to be towards building competency in the way that you want to build it, right? You can't say chiefs are humble servant leaders and then walk around the fleet and like evaluate chiefs and think that that's fucking true, because it's not. Like, there are people out there that are humble servant leaders, but organizationally, if you did a poll and you said pick the best answer and you provided fuck it, provide 10 did like catchphrases, and humble servant leader was one of them. Zero. Unless they were trying, like they thought it was the answer you were looking for, which they probably would. So you'd have to put some like compelling like alternate answers in there. But like fucking zero people are picking humble servant leader and actually meaning that shit. Come on. You can't believe that. You can't really believe that. Do you want that to be true? Sure. I believe that. I believe that the MCPON and the leadership mess and all those people want that to be true. But do you believe that's the current state? Like, do you believe presently that that's true? Because if you do, you're fucking so wrong and probably full of shit. Because give me a fucking break, man. You can't really believe that to be true. The last one, advancing Navy culture. How is the culture you are responsible for connected to America's warfighting Navy and our greater Navy culture? It's fucking everything. Read the book. I mean, like, here, I think I have another quote that's probably pertinent to this. I mean, this is really a wrap it up quote, so let me make sure there's nothing I want to rant on. In addition to this, captured by the mission vision guiding principles, what other culture attributes are necessary to achieve? Whatever. Yeah, the rest of it's I don't fucking care about. How is the culture you are responsible for connected to America's warfighting Navy and our greater Navy culture? It's everything. It dictates everything. It really does, for better or worse. When I would say it's definitely for worse right now. Like, we're not doing a good job culturally. And this is one of the better quotes that I highlighted that I wanted to include as like a wrap it up quote to illustrate how important culture really is. And I've said this in a way, and it wasn't necessarily in relation to culture, but it was like sailor performance, which is, I think, is dictated by culture. And that's kind of what this is saying. It's like, it says it's possible to predict performance by ignoring all the informational content in the exchange and focusing on a handful of belonging cues. The reason I harp on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and sense of belonging being the most important one is I can predict performance based on that sense of belonging cue and the things that inform that, like my observations that inform sense of belonging, all the information I can imbibe in evaluating a sailor's performance and the culture of like a work center or division or department or whatever. I can just pay attention to sense of belonging and predict the performance of that team much, much more accurately than I could if I just imbibed a bunch of like analytics type data based on performance metrics that people like to pay attention to that they're not unimportant as cues that there is a problem, right? But what's more important is that if I pay attention to the sense of belonging cues, I can predict what's going to happen much more accurately. Meaning I could not be getting a red flag with the metrics driven observations, and there could still be a cultural problem, and there could still be a sense of belonging issue, and then I could predict the outcome that I would not have even been made aware of by those metrics in some situations, right? Because there are, like, if you think about the way that a lot of, like, you could have like a metric driven high performing organization, like based on those informational observations, the organization is performing at a high level, but that could be because the culture of the organization is just like beating high-ish performance, or at least metric meeting performance out of those people. And they just haven't run out of gas yet. You know what I mean? But a negative culture will suck the life out of people eventually. And then you'll start to see all those metrics go right. Like, it's inevitable if the culture's not corrected. But I've been at a command that by the measurables, we were doing well, but culturally we were doing horribly. It's just like we hadn't eaten shit yet. Like, we just hadn't gotten that, like, to a point where we were doing poorly enough that it was becoming a big issue, but like it was being noticed outside the command. But a lot of the important metrics that matter for like the CO and Cobb getting the follow-on assignments they want were fine, because That's how we've structured everything. It's like going back to the ECP and the other policy documents we use to drive performance in junior sailors, right? Like those documents drive the way sailors prioritize tasks. So if the metrics for evaluating COs, for evaluating COBs or CMCs, for evaluating XOs, whatever, for evaluating command culture are information-driven metrics, like performance-driven metrics, but we're not measuring the sense of belonging cues at the same time. You're not measuring culture. Like, so what the fuck? Like, it's confounding. It's I'll never understand, like, and it's not, this book is not, it's uncommon knowledge, but it's not like unattainable, and it's not even, there's not a high barrier for entry. A second class, a third class could read this book and they would understand everything that's in it. I might have to ask a few questions or look some shit up, but like, it's very approachable. It's very, very understandable and at a reading level that normal people can understand. And that was intentional. He wants a fucking restaurant manager to be able to read this and make meaningful improvements in the culture of their fucking Denny's or whatever. And so this is a very, very approachable book. So it's like this information is not hard to understand and incorporate. And so it makes you wonder, is like, are we willfully ignoring this? Like, are we intentionally not doing this? And is it the touchy-feely stuff I was talking about? Is it something else? Is it just like maybe there's a version to like psychology and shit, like, oh, that's for the shrinks, like that's not what we do here. And it's like, well, human psychology is just like an understanding and study of like the human mind and how we reason and solve problems and react to stimuli and such, right? Like its tentacles extend out into like just fucking everywhere, but at the core of it, that's what it is. So it's like, are we ignoring it for that reason? I don't know. Get the book, read the book, use my affiliate link if you love me. I'm gonna end this one and end these memo podcasts. Thank God. I hope he doesn't come up with a good, unless he starts releasing substantive memos like weekly, which he won't fucking do that. But unless he starts doing that or starts a podcast where he starts like to provide like some actual explanation or information of any kind besides just like throwaway comments and questions, I really hope he stops fucking doing this so that I can just not do these podcasts anymore, because this shit just fucking, it's excruciating. It's excruciating because he's taken the time to do something. So why not do something that is meaningful instead of this bullshit? But here we are. If you want to support us, hit us up. Or, well, if you want to talk to us, hit us up. Don't give up shit podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up Shit Podcast, or you can DM us on Instagram, Reddit, or Discord at DGUTS If you want to support us, go to dgutspodcast.com. There's a donate button in the upper right-hand corner of the website. You can click the shop button. It'll take you to Don't Give Up the Ship apparel. It's dgutspodcast.com. Get yourself some naval pride and heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. We got stickers and bags and shower shoes and all kinds of cool shit. Hoodies. It's getting cold out there. Get yourself some hoodies. We got some nice hoodies. And you can go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast. Pick one of the 5 tiers. Become a member today. Really appreciate that. If you can't afford to spend any money, that's fine. You can support us by like, share, subscribe, reviewing on all the platforms for all the things, particularly YouTube. We're dangerously close to getting monetized. I looked at it between recordings. We're about 900 watch hours away. It was a little more than I thought, but so consume the podcast via YouTube, and I see you guys doing it in the metrics for like just the normal RSS feed. They've gone down and YouTube's gone way up, so I appreciate the current listeners for doing that to help us get those YouTube numbers up. But also, like, you know, if you can imbibe it that way to help us get the subscribers up to 1,000 and then get those watch hours polished off, we can finally monetize the YouTube channel, and that'll be a big deal as well. And it's free to consume it that way and subscribe to the channel. Like, you don't got to spend any money. YouTube pays us, you don't. And then you can, you know, just share stuff, follow us on all the socials and tag your friends and send them the link and all that shit. It all helps, and we appreciate all of it, including just listening. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship. Hey, shout out to all our level 5 patrons, Victoria Livingood, William McIver, and Mark Galagos. To all our other patrons, we really appreciate your support. Helps to pay all the bills, expand the platform, and we couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel.